Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto become a Fuinjutsu Master? Part 1. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, so without wasting any time, let's get into the video. Over the horizon, the sun starts to climb over the mountains and fortresses of old wizened trees. Its red sunbeams rained down on the ninja world, plunging the world into a red ocean that filled people with hope or dread. Another day dawns and man open their eyes with a smile or with a frown, either welcoming the rays of life with wide arms or fearing the start of a new day. Inside a tall tower painted in deep red, a man wearing a white hat sat with furrowed brows, his wrinkled face showing the passage of time and his deep frown showing his chaotic thoughts. His gaze locked upon the door made with light brown cedar wood. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. The old man sits for a minute, his gaze dimming and brightening from time to time. Then, 1 minute turns into 10, and 10 minutes turns into 1 hour. Ha! The old man let out a sigh, intending to stand up. Knock. 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 Before he could straighten his knees, a series of knocks rang from behind the door. Come in, the old man said, loud enough so that the person behind the door can't hear his voice. Creak. The old door creaked as it opens, revealing a man with bronze skin and short brown hair. The man's face is covered by a white cat-shaped mask, and a peculiar fire symbol is tattooed on his left shoulder. The man knelt, and on his arms was a bundle of white cloth with a baby sleeping soundly inside. Lord Hokage, here is the child you are looking for, he said with his head bowed, showing respect and loyalty for his master. Then, he lifted the sleeping child over to a wooden cradle that was prepared before he came into the office. The old man behind the desk glanced at the child before waving his hand, promptly dismissing the Anbu ninja. Good work, he praised. You may go, he ordered. Yes, Lord Hokage. After bowing to the old man, the village's Hokage, the Anbu left, making no sound as he closed the door. The Hokage's gaze lingered on the cedarwood for a moment before he let out a sigh he'd been suppressing for a while. When his gaze landed on the boy who was sleeping peacefully, he selfishly felt envious before shaking his head. Ashina, the Hokage mumbled, your son looks just like you. Looking over the boy's blood-red hair with streaks of golden yellow and the whiskers that grew on the child's cheeks, he smiled before looking down and closing his eyes, using his hands to rub his temples. What a wretched fate, the old man mumbled. He doesn't hate the child, he hates the thing inside the child. Minato, what have you done? The old man questioned, not expecting an answer. Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, was supposed to lead the village to prosperity, but expectations often end in disappointment. After leaving behind a child who imprisoned the world's most wicked beast, Minato's soul jumped straight into the god of death's stomach. That's right, the child is a Jinchuriki. He is the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox, more commonly known as Kyubi no Yauko, the harbinger of hate and destruction. Damn it, why do you have to die so early? Even now, he still can't get over the fact that his successor died young and fresh, he didn't even have the chance to have another child. He knows that living into elderhood as a ninja is like picking up a treasure at the end of the rainbow, so although he lamented Minato's death, he didn't blame him. Luck is an elusive thing, you can't just have it because you want to. Turning his gaze into the window, the old man felt a headache brewing. As the Hokage, he has the power to decide the child's fate. But the question is, does he have the heart to do so? For the first time in his life, the Hokage wished he wasn't wearing the white hat with the emblem for fire. His responsibility is to ensure that the village is prosperous and powerful, so that the seeds of war inside the other great ninja villages don't bloom, and that means that he has to turn this child into a weapon. It was the child's fate, as his mere existence breeds fear inside people's hearts, but as a father who saw many of his sons' deaths, he found it heavy on the heart to mold the child into a walking weapon, yet his mind reasoned that he should. He wishes to give the child a normal happy life, even though reality dictates that it is impossible. Hashirama found himself unable to make a decision. He became the Hokage at a young age and was very wise and decisive at his peak, but now that he was old, he can't even make a simple decision regarding the village's strongest asset. Hashirama may have comforted him, but his sensei would surely reprimand him. What to do? Should I give him to Danzo? Danzo had been searching for young talents lately, and his root shinobi shows some potential. Knock knock. As he scratched his chin in search of enlightenment, a sudden knock at the door woke him up from his dark thoughts. Come in, he said after getting out of his daze. Lord Hokage. When the door opened, it revealed a silver-haired youth wearing a dog-shaped Anbu mask. Inu, what brought you here? Looking at the ninja who entered the office and knelt, Hiruzen felt his heart throbbing with guilt. Did he really consider giving the child to Danzo? How stupid, he wanted to punch himself. Doing so was effectively the same as giving his enemy a knife when he was unarmed with his hands tied on his back. He might as well give the boy to Orochimaru while he's at it. I have a request, Lord Hokage. The silver-haired Anbu looked up, locking eyes with the old man. And what is it? The old man questioned, his voice calm, devoid of any emotions. Inside his mind, the old man was amused. The name of the white-haired Anbu is Kakashi, and he is known for being professional if you ignore his tardiness, never making a single mistake, and having a nearly perfect record. Long story short, Kakashi Hatake is an elite, and his strength borders that of a Kage. He is known for never asking unnecessary questions and never making any requests. What made him change his mind today? I wish to adopt the fourth Hokage's son, Kakashi stated, his demeanor solemn and his gaze unwavering. The old man was shocked, albeit only for a moment. Kakashi-sensei is the fourth Hokage, so it's understandable that he would want to protect his mentor's legacy. There is just one problem. You can't, the old man said, his heavy tone leaving no room for discussion. Even if he was willing on letting Kakashi foster the boy, the village heads will never agree, especially a certain Warhawk. If you're worried about the boy's safety, then you are underestimating me, the old man glanced at the child sleeping in the wooden cradle. I can guarantee his safety. Hearing the Hokage's promise, Kakashi became silent. After a few breaths, he spoke up. I thank the Hokage for his benevolence. Kakashi stood up and bowed before leaving through the cedarwood door. After watching Kakashi leave, Hiruzen turned his gaze back on the sleeping child. Inside the cradle, vibrant lavender eyes stared right into his brown eyes. The hair on his arms went straight and a shiver ran through his spine. Seeing the boy's unblinking eyes, he stared back before realizing that he was being silly. He stood up, secretly watching as the boy's eyes followed his every move. It gave him the feeling of being judged, but he killed the idea as soon as it arose. What the hell am I thinking? That's just a newborn child. I'm way too old for this shit. 4 winters came and went. The mighty village hidden in the leaves experienced change and hardships, but the thought of giving up never went through their minds. Although one major event happened not too long ago. Inside a massive sandbox, a boy with red hair quietly sat, his hand slowly and carefully carving a 4 feet tall sandcastle. His crystal-like lavender eyes focused on the tiny doorframe at the very bottom of the sandcastle, and sweat rained down on his forehead. The castle was intricately built, and details were painstakingly carved into every corner of the sandcastle, giving off the feeling that it was made by a skilled sculptor, yet this masterpiece was carved by a single child. Ha! The boy let out a sigh after carving the castle door. Looking at the perfection in front of him, the boy chuckled and sat back, wincing when he felt a sharp pain in his butt. He quickly stood up, looking down at the culprit, a small bucket. Annoyed, he kicked the bucket, not expecting the bucket to hit the sandcastle he'd been working on for hours. TSK, the boy clicked his tongue. After a long day of hard work, the sandcastle fell just like that. He couldn't express how annoyed he feels right now. Bored, he looked around. There were no other children around, but he got used to it after a month. On his 4th birthday, his life experienced a sudden change. Everyone avoided him, and when he came into the playgrounds, the parents would take away their children with haste, glancing at him from time to time with disgust and hate. He tried to ask them if he did something wrong, but all he got was cold shoulders. Is that a ninja? When he saw a man standing idly by a closed shop, his eyes widened. The man is wearing a forehead protector on his neck, so he quickly realized that the man is a ninja. The man's left hand was tucked inside his pants, while his right hand was holding a small book with a red cover. Suddenly, the man's face twisted, and he could almost hear the man sneering as he threw the book away. The book landed on a nearby light post, and the man walked away without looking back. The boy tilted his head. Why did he throw the book away? Doesn't he know that books are precious? His favorite hobby was reading, so when seeing someone treat a book so harshly, he became a little irritated. Whatever. Since he threw it away, I can pick it up, right? The boy looked around. I'm not stealing, I'm just picking up a book. One man's trash is another man's treasure. The boy laughed to himself before running toward the fallen book. After picking up the red book, he turned and ran toward his apartment as if he just stole the Hokage's hat. When he saw the orange building not too far away from him, a smile formed on his face. Thankfully, he made it home safely. Ark. The boy's shoulders straightened, his soul jumping up to the clouds. While gripping the red book tightly with his small hands, the boy rushed toward his room and yanked the door open before slamming it shut after entering the room. Haha, his shoulder trembled and a bright smirk appeared on his face. His hand slowly opened the book and light seemed to come out from the book, lighting up his face with a flash of golden brilliance. Oh, the boy's mouth gaped and his breathing stopped. His eyes darted from right to left, repeating the process dozens of times before he remembered to breathe. What's this? It's so good, why did the ninja throw it away? Confused, he closed the book with reluctance and flipped it over to read the book's title. Titling his head, the boy, Naruto Uzumaki, read the book's title aloud. The Art of Fuinjutsu. Flip SHHH. Inside a room, a droplet of yellow flame danced on the wick of a white candle, dyeing the place with its mellow radiance. Flip. Beside the table whence the candle stood, a boy was curled on top of a wooden chair, flipping the pages of a small red book and scanning the words with his peppy lavender eyes, letting out a muffled giggle as he finishes reading a page. Flip shhh. He used his fingers to graze the yellow pages, and his smile burned brighter as he felt the rough texture of the paper. With his sensitive nose, he can smell the unique aroma of the book. He adores books like they were his friends and family, but he can't get his hands on a lot of books. Most of the time, he only sees books from a distance, and the ones he can get are either broken or torn apart, but he still keeps it. Such precious things, how dare he throw you away? His nerves throbbed when remembering the ninja who threw away the book, but at the same time, he felt happy. Well, I guess I should thank him. It's been a week since he picked up this red book, and ever since then, he found himself looking for the book each minute of the day. If someone asked him how many times he read the book, he would be unsure of how to answer. Because at this point, he could recite the entire book by memory. The book never left his side, even as he sleeps or goes to the toilet, and he would read the book over and over again, every time he finds the chance, which is every time. Yeah. From his mouth, a shameful girlish squeal came out, making even the most faithful fangirl will kneel in worship. He hugged the book, almost as if it was his long-lost brother. Fuinjutsu is so awesome. Flip flip flip. While flipping the pages one after the other, his eyes were twinkling with endless delight, and his fingers were shivering in elation. Even after a week, his joy from reading the book hadn't dissipated. The art of Fuinjutsu explained the basic knowledge about Fuinjutsu. While it didn't actually teach the reader how to create seal formulas, it taught the reader how to prepare themselves to become a Fuinjutsu expert. For example, it told about the different levels of Fuinjutsu mastery. Every Fuinjutsu practitioner is called a Fuinjutsu expert, and they are divided into 5 levels. Level 1 Fuinjutsu experts are called students, as they only know how to create beginner-level seal formulas, and they can only copy seal formulas, not create them. Level 2 Fuinjutsu experts are called juniors. Fuinjutsu juniors can write all types of seal formulas, from rank E to rank S, but their success rate isn't high. They are also capable of creating their own sealing formulas, but they can only create up to rank D seal formulas. They need sealing paper and ink to write sealing formulas. Level 3 Fuinjutsu experts are called seniors. Fuinjutsu seniors can write all types of seal formulas, and their success rate is average. They can create up to rank A sealing formulas, and they can write seals on any type of surface, but they still need sealing ink. Level 4 Fuinjutsu experts are called professors. Fuinjutsu professors can write all types of seal formulas, and their success rate is high. They can create up to rank S sealing formulas, and they can write sealing formulas using only chakra. They don't need sealing paper or ink. Lastly, level 5 Fuinjutsu experts are called masters. Fuinjutsu masters can do everything a Fuinjutsu professor can do, but they can create forbidden sealing formulas. Forbidden sealing formulas can defy logic, and sealing masters can write sealing formulas on the air. Furthermore, Fuinjutsu masters are unique, and no Fuinjutsu master is the same. Each Fuinjutsu master specializes in one field or more, and the most common examples are ninjutsu and genjutsu. Sadly, the book states that no Fuinjutsu master has appeared. Since the Uzumaki clan's fall, the red-haired boy pouted and touched his hair. I wonder why the Uzumaki clan is so special. I want to know what they look like. He shook his head. It doesn't matter. The book said that to have a smooth journey in Fuinjutsu, one must have excellent chakra control, but what is chakra? Clueless, he stood up and opened the door, heading toward the only library he knew that didn't kick him out. My name is Izuku, and my family owns a library. Walking on the streets, a tall man with smooth brown hair combed neatly glanced around with a frown on his face. According to my family's records, the library was opened on the same day as the second Hokage's rise to power. Izuku sighed. You'd think that our library would be famous, but no. Our library is relatively unknown. Not because it isn't popular, but because it is prestigious and sacred, and barely anyone dares to read there. If not for the Hokage's support, the library would have long closed. As he nears a brown building, Izuku's frown turned into a tired smile. I'm not disappointed that barely anyone knows my library, but Izuku looked behind him, his eyes containing no small amount of contempt when he saw the gossiping villagers. He shook his head and muttered a low curse before entering the building. What greeted him was a room full of books and indoor plants. On the far back, there were 10 small rooms, and in the middle, there were a couple of empty tables. As he closed the door, a small boy around the corner raised his head, his ink-black eyes hidden behind his black hair, staring at the door Izuku had closed. On his hand, he spun a paintbrush around with a bright smile on his face. Then, he opened a scroll and drew a small animal using black ink. I can't believe the people here are blind. Izuku yelled, his sight darkening for a few moments. He only regained his calm after walking next to an indoor plant and caressing its leaves. Izuku liked plants, but he doesn't like taking care of them. That's why all the plants he owns are low maintenance. Just because the child houses that beast, they shun him. Izuku's mind pulsated and he buried his face in both of his hands. Don't they realize that because the boy housed the beast inside of him, the village was saved? He didn't know when, but a rumor suddenly spread around the village like a plague. The boy with red hair and whiskers is the one holding the nine-tailed fox inside of him. Ever since then, the villagers began avoiding the poor child. At first, some villagers tried to reason that the child is innocent and that the rumors are false, but those people suddenly vanished into thin air, their homes abandoned, and their families had to leave the village. Because of this, a nastier rumor spread out. The red-haired boy is the reincarnation of the nine-tailed fox, and associating with him will bring disaster to you and your family. Izuku firmly believed that both rumors were false, but he can't do anything. If he tries to help the boy, he would certainly vanish like the ones who tried before him. Therefore, he ended up silently helping the child by accidentally dropping a few coins when he sees the boy and leaving behind trash in front of the boy's apartment. The trash were actually toys, but he wrapped them in paper so they looked like trash. The latter worked, but every time he dropped some coins, the boy would return them to him. "No, little boy. Those coins aren't mine," Izuku tried to persuade the boy. "Why don't you just take it already?" Izuku mentally sighed. In a way, this was actually the better outcome. "No sir. I saw with my own 2 eyes," the red-haired boy pointed at his eyes which resembled the finest jewelry, "that those coins fell from your hands." The boy opened and closed his hands with a silly smile on his face. Oh, really? Then, thank you for returning them." Izuku barely suppressed the urge to hug the boy. He's so adorable, how can he be a demon? I swear, this boy is actually an angel in disguise. Although he was trying to help the boy by dropping a few coins, when the boy returned his money to him, he realized that he was being stupid. If the boy saw him drop the coins and deliberately hid them and didn't return them, wouldn't that mean that he was teaching the boy how to become dishonest and a little thief? After that, he didn't drop coins in front of the boy anymore, but he still gave the boy a few toys dressed as trash whenever he had the chance. Thankfully, no one realized what I'm doing. Izuku breathed a sigh of relief. If someone realized the truth, he would have to say goodbye to his life. After clearing his mind, Izuku walked behind the counter and sat. Opening the cabinet, he took out an orange book and a lecherous smile appeared on his face, while his ears began turning red. Creak. Hearing the door creak open, he almost threw the book at the door, but he held himself back in time and avoided throwing away his precious book. He swiftly returned it to the cabinet before turning his head toward the door. Instantly, a warm smile bloomed on his face upon seeing the unexpected but certainly welcomed guest. "Hello," the boy weakly greeted, his head was bowed down, but his eyes were observing my reaction. He reminded me of a cat meeting a human for the first time. "Hello, how may I help you?" I greet him back. "May I rent one of the booths?" "I have 100 ryo." The boy plunged his hands into his pockets and the sound of coins hitting each other rang in my ears like some sort of unusual melody. "Here, look, there's 100 ryo, I promise." Looking at the boy's outstretched hands, I chuckled and ruffled his hair. "Okay, you can go to your desired booth," I said and watched as a smile bloomed on his face and he briskly walked toward booth number 9. Ironic, he likes the number 9. I shake my head. When I opened my hand and counted the coins, it totaled to 100 ryo, just as he promised. Remembering the soft red hair of the boy, I couldn't help but smile. Well, he's going to read like there's no tomorrow, so I better get some snacks. Izuku stood up from his chair and took out a bunch of wrapped up cookies and a bottle of juice. He likes the number 9, his favorite color is orange, and he likes orange juice. I think I'm seeing a pattern here. Izuku let out a chuckle while filling a glass cup with orange juice. After placing everything on a brown tray, he went to booth number 9 and laid the tray with the snacks on a table next to the door, after which he lightly knocked on the closed door before walking back to his desk. Wow, there's orange juice today as well. Seeing the glass of orange juice and the cookies on the table, my smile couldn't get any wider. I lifted the tray and placed it next to the table inside the booth. Crunch. Crunch. After tasting one of the cookies, I opened a book the size of my torso and the thickness of my wrist. The title read The Origins of Chakra, written by the second Hokage. 2 hours later, I laid the book down for the 3rd time. Ah, that was a good read. I smiled and recalled everything I just learned. To summarize the book, it was about how chakra manifests inside a person, how it is developed and how it matures, and how the chakra system works. A person will manifest their chakra at the age of 4, and their chakra system will fully mature between the ages of 12 and 15. If you came from a civilian family, your chakra might fully mature before the age of 12, so the shinobi clans already have an advantage in regards to this, as they trained from a very young age. The chakra system is formed the moment a person manifests their chakra, and it is similar to a person's circulatory system or nervous system, except it functions to circulate chakra around the body. The better a person's chakra system is, the more chakra they can store inside their bodies, and the smoother they will be able to use their chakra. The chakra system can be improved through training, but after the chakra system matures, it will be difficult to further improve the chakra system. The second Hokage is wise and smart. I nod my head in respect. But my idol is still the fourth Hokage. He is a hero who defeated the nine-tailed fox, and his stories are always cool. Naruto grew up hearing the tales and exploits of the fourth Hokage, and like most kids of his generation, he idolized and worshipped the fourth Hokage. I should read the next book before dusk arrives. Thinking so, I picked up the second book I got from the bookshelf. It was titled Chakra and Its Uses, but I don't recognize the author. He must be from an unknown family, I deduced. Chakra and Its Uses was thicker and bigger than the second Hokage's book, but it was harder to understand and read. I guess that proves how intelligent and talented the second Hokage is. I rubbed my eyes after 3 hours of reading the second book. The second book was very similar to the second Hokage's book. Maybe he used the second Hokage's book as a reference. I shake my head. That was perfectly normal, but because he liked to read every letter, word, and sentence inside a book, it meant that he wasted a lot of time. Next time, I should read only the relevant information I wisely learned from my errors. Either way, Chakra and Its Uses proposes an interesting theory. In short, it suggested that there were ways to prevent the chakra system from maturing, making it easier to improve the chakra system, but the author briefly glossed over the fact that the practice is forbidden and has countless side effects. It's forbidden for a reason, after all. I shrug. The book also mentioned something about the Uzumaki clan. From what the author wrote, the Uzumaki clan have red hair. I paused, staring at the sentence describing the Uzumaki clan's appearance. My surname is Uzumaki. I touch my hair, and I have red hair. Am I part of the Uzumaki clan, or is it just a coincidence? Doubting my heritage, I stood up and browsed the entire bookshelf, but found no books about the Uzumaki clan. Hold on, suddenly, I remembered something. It was about the red book I've been reading for the past week. If I remember correctly, I closed my eyes, recalling the surname of that book's author. The Art of Fuinjutsu, written by Hiro Uzumaki. That's it. I tapped around my body, trying to fish out that red book of mine. As the seconds ticked by, my face became duller and duller. It's not here. Oh no, did I drop it? Scared witless, I rushed out of the library, not minding the startled librarian who threw an orange book into the air. Izuku shook his head, blankly watching the door that slammed close. What an energetic child, I mumbled, kneeling to pick up the book I dropped. Then, I sat back on my chair and wiped my glasses with a clean towel. I closed my eyes and put them back on. He's a lively one, isn't he? Bang. In front of me, a pale face greeted me with a smile. The chair behind me tumbled down with a bang, and my body chilled like a block of ice as I stood still, not daring to take another breath. He's a ninja. I can feel the aura of murder around the man. Hold on. He's so young. The pale person in front of me can't be older than 6 or 7. You see, I like my brother. That boy reminds me of brother, so I like him. The pale kid spoke with a smile on his face. But my mission is to silence people like you, who try and stick themselves to that boy's purity. The kid chuckled when he spoke the last word. What do you mean? I stammered, and my skin turned paler than his complexion. Don't you know? He's a demon, the kid whispered and pointed a paintbrush at my face. The brush touched my nose, but I couldn't feel a thing. And people die because of demons. The last thing I saw was the boy's kind smile and the black ink bottle in his hand before the world was painted in black ink. Don't worry, I'll make a portrait of you. I hope you like black and white. I don't really like colors, the kid talked to himself as he take out a blank canvas. His brush danced around the blank canvas for a few minutes. Done? Do you like it? The kid smiled and showed the portrait to Izuku's still opened eyes. I'll take that as a yes, the kid muttered and vanished from the library, his smile forever etched on his pale face. On the wide, busy streets of Konoha, a boy with red hair and whiskers suddenly halted and turned to look behind him. When he saw that the brown building was still there, vibrant and full of life with colorful flowers around it, he sighed in relief. It must have been my imagination, he muttered and continued running. Thud. Step. 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 TRRKK. When opening the drawer, I held my breath, anxious and afraid. What if it's not there? What if I dropped it on the streets? What if someone stole it? What if— Tack. The drawer resisted my pull, indicating that it was fully opened. I slowly opened my eyes and held my heart in my throat. Phew. Seeing the familiar red cover laying neatly inside the drawer, a relieved breath passed through my mouth as my heart dropped back to my chest. Thankfully, no one broke into my apartment with malicious intentions, I thought before letting out a giggle. Who would try and rob me when everyone avoids me like I'm some sort of demon? Suddenly, my giggle became sporadic. I rubbed my eyes and held the book next to my chest. Sorry I left you behind, I whispered as if placating a sulking child. I shudder at a sudden thought I had. If someone really did rob me, ugh, I shouldn't think of something so horrible. After making sure that the book was untouched by all except him, I looked at the title of the book. The Art of Fuinjutsu, written by Hiro Uzumaki. I was right, I mumble. The author was in Uzumaki, I nodded. This was the only book I had that was written by an Uzumaki. It's also the only book related to the Uzumaki in some way, as the library didn't have any books about the Uzumaki clan. I trembled in excitement at the thought of belonging to a clan. I may not have a family, but at least I have a clan. But I guess nothing changes. The book he read from the library said that the Uzumaki clan had long fallen. All of a sudden, the excitement I felt turned into bitterness. Here I thought I finally belonged somewhere, turns out it was a fool's dream, I said, clutching the book in my hand tightly. At least I still have a book written by an Uzumaki. I hope I can meet an Uzumaki in the future. I looked at the ceiling and imagined what I would do if that happened. The first thing I'd do is check if they have red hair like me. I shake my head. For now, I want to try learning Fuinjutsu. Since an Uzumaki can write a book about Fuinjutsu, it means he knows Fuinjutsu. As an Uzumaki, I should also know Fuinjutsu. I laughed at the thought. Perhaps I'm just trying to fill a void in my heart, but who cares? If it makes me happy, then that's all that matters. The book said that the most basic skill of a Fuinjutsu expert is chakra control. It said something about having as much chakra control as an average Hyuga. I tilt my head to the side, my brows raised. What is a Hyuga? Are they a clan like the Uzumaki? I guess so, they must have pretty good chakra control if the book describes it that way. Although I was the red book, I didn't actually open it. I just recalled the contents of the book from memory, and holding the book is just a habit that I formed. Should I go back to the library? I pondered. The librarian there is so kind, maybe he'll tell me things about the Hyuga clan if I ask him. While talking to myself, a realization hit me. Ah. I forgot to ask about his name. Looking out the window, I saw that the sun was already at its peak and the streets were as busy as a market. Well, let's ask him tomorrow. For now, I'll try practicing this chakra control thing. I went into action as soon as I thought of what to do. Firstly, I put the book down and took out a rug, laying it down on the floor. After closing the windows to prevent the noise from distracting me, I sat down on the floor with my legs crossed and eyes closed. Meditation is the best way to relax your mind, or so the second Hokage says. I didn't doubt the second Hokage's words, but if someone were to ask me, I'd disagree. The best way to relax is by reading. But since I need an empty mind, I have no choice but to meditate. If I read a book to relax, the book's contents would fill up my mind, rendering the whole thing a waste of time. After 30 minutes, I open my eyes and look at my hands. Meditation is like watching paint dry up, but by the end of it, you have dry paint. In other words, it works as intended. My mind is calm, and no intrusive thoughts invaded my head, at least for now. Before I get distracted, I'll try and sense my chakra system. After closing my eyes again, I tried to feel my chakra system. Chakra is supposed to feel either warm or cool, and it's supposed to be erratic or chaotic. Well, the chakra system should look similar to the nervous system and the circulatory system. Amen. Suddenly, a groan came out of my mouth without warning. So warm. The moment I tried to feel for my chakra, I was instantly hit with a warm feeling. It reminded me of the sun, like I was basking under the sun on a cold winter day, or like I was laying under a blanket on a cold winter night. It made me feel relaxed, and if I continued, I'd fall asleep. Quick, let's go to the next step. Apparently, no one can fall asleep while doing chakra exercises. It was the second Hokage's words. According to him, only a brain-dead fool would fall asleep while doing chakra exercises. After successfully feeling my chakra system, I circulated my chakra clockwise around my body. From my right arm to my right leg, then to my left leg and to my left arm, and then to my head and to my torso before going back to my right arm. You were supposed to start with your dominant arm, hence why I started with my right arm. When I started, it feels like trying to move a heavy boulder upward, but after circulating my chakra 3 times, the feeling of heaviness slowly lessened. I feel so itchy. If you were to describe it, it was similar to scrubbing your body clean of grime, but you weren't allowed to rinse yourself. The feeling was both relieving and frustrating. After repeating the process 30 times, the recommended amount stated by the second Hokage, the heavy feeling completely disappeared and circulating chakra was like moving my arm around. It felt natural and without any resistance. Then, I opened my eyes, but before light could even hit my eyes, I froze and my face turned pale as if I'd seen a ghost. Ew. The pungent smell attacked my nose like the most potent vinegar. The smell itself wasn't unbearable, but being covered from head to toe by the smell was, and the fact that his entire body made me feel like I was a living slime, made my expression turn sour. Slop. Ugh. Even if I just twisted his body, a sloshy sound would ring in my ears, making me cringe. Bath. I need a bath. Squelch sloppy squelch. As I ran to the bathroom, my ears tingled from hearing the sloppy noises as I hold my breath as if the room is filled with toxic gas. Behind me was the rug I sat on. As you would expect, it was damp and left a trail of sweat behind it as he dragged the rug to the bathroom with him. I'll wash myself and that rug clean, lest my room smells like the wet market in the future. After taking a bath, I opened the door to the balcony with the intention to hang the rug for the sun to dry it up. As a result, I was greeted by a dark sky and a setting sun. No way, I only practiced for a few minutes. I stood still, my mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water and my eyes blank like a salted fish. Finally, after 3 minutes, I realized what happened. My perception of time is cut off every time I practice chakra control exercises. No wonder the second Hokage always mentioned outdoor training and didn't mention anything about indoor training. I scratch my head and hang the rug on the balcony to dry when the next day dawns. I should be careful and always be mindful of time, lest I accidentally train for days and dehydrate or starve to death. I shiver at the thought. With nothing else to do, I sat on the floor one more time after eating dinner. This time, I wanted to try a different chakra control exercise. The second exercise involves actually releasing chakra. The second Hokage said to start with a small amount and increase the chakra output from there. You succeed when you can see faint chakra coat your palm. I closed my eyes and controlled my chakra to gather around my right palm. Then, I imagined a trapdoor being opened on my palm and commanded my chakra to exit through and linger on my palm. When I felt a warm current on my palm, I opened my eyes but found not even a trace of azure. Is the output too low? I mumbled and tried to increase the chakra output. This time, I didn't close my eyes. I watched closely but nothing happened. Frowning, I pushed half of my entire chakra to my palm. Suddenly, a cut with the length of a thumb and the thickness of a pencil appeared on my palm. The crimson flesh, torn skin, and rose-red blood made me tremble non-stop. It hurts. I held my right wrist with my left hand and the trembling lessened. Then I went to the sink and washed the wound clean. When the clean water touched the open wound, I bit my lip. The pain is too intense, but I can somehow endure it without crying out, although silent tears were rolling down my face. After washing the wound clean, I wrapped the wound with a clean bandage and sat on the bed. I didn't know I can hurt myself, I mumbled, but after doing so, I suddenly wanted to slap myself. I just remembered, chakra is the fuel to ninjutsu, those fantastical things that allow ninjas to breathe flames and make wind blades. Of course, it's dangerous to recklessly train with chakra. Now I understand why most people didn't want to become a ninja despite the allure it brings. Ninjas have great strength and even greater wealth. If you are a ninja and have decent skills, you wouldn't experience starvation. Furthermore, if you were strong enough, you can become a powerhouse that the world obeys. Humans are creatures that seek control and authority, how can they pass on such a sweet candy? Now I understand. Training to become a ninja is dangerous, not to mention that going into missions is even more dangerous. I should have been careful, I thought before falling asleep from fatigue. Chirp. Chirp. Tweet. Yawn. Stretching my arms and body awake, I looked around the room when I felt a dull pain in my palm. Looking down, I saw that the bandage had been loosened and soaked in blood. Damn, was my sleeping posture that bad? I mumbled in doubt, but when I looked at the messy bed sheets, I can only helplessly shake my head. The sun is above me, how can I doubt its existence? I walked toward the first aid kit and cleaned my wound before wrapping it up with another roll of bandage. By the time I finished tidying up the desk, I realized that I will need more bandages and other medical supplies, especially if I want to train chakra control, since this will undoubtedly repeat itself. But who would sell me a first aid kit? The villagers avoided me as if my touch meant death. Looking around me, I see the shop owners closing their windows or covering their products whenever my gaze land on their precious goods. Not wanting to disturb their day, I resumed walking with my head bowed down. What did I do wrong? Hey. What's your name? Come, let's play. Suddenly, a cheerful voice echoed in my ears. The tone was sunny and playful, and an imaginary group of friends popped out of my mind. I smiled bitterly. I wish I had a friend too. Hey. Why are you ignoring me? When I kept walking, someone tapped my shoulder. Startled, I look up and saw the bluest eyes I'd ever seen. It was a boy with the same age and height as me, and he had golden yellow hair and a radiant toothy grin. After not having anyone talk to me for weeks, I tilted my head to the side and asked uncertainly, "Are you talking to me? Who else would I be talking to?" He shook his head and looked around. I mimicked him and looked around, realizing that the streets were empty and only the two of us were occupying the wide path. "So, what's your name? Wanna play?" "I'm Does you really want to play with me? Really? Come on. Just say your name already, stop putting me in suspense." When the cheery voice turned a little annoyed, I panicked. Will he not play with me if I don't say my name? My name is Naruto Uzumaki. After saying my name, I look at him to watch his reaction. When other kids hear my name, they freak out and run away. We'll hear run away too. Oh, you mean those fish cakes in ramen? The boy laughed. Hearing the remark, my face flushed red and I glare at him. It's not. It means maelstrom. Say it with me, maelstrom. For some reason, he only laughed louder. I bet your parents were hungry when they named you, PFFT. Hey. Pissed off, I raised my fist. Care to say that again? Somehow, my hair felt lighter and the boy gulped, wide-eyed, and was meekly shaking his head. Seeing this, I nodded in satisfaction and my blood stopped boiling. Both I and the boy turned our heads when we heard another voice. Looking to my left, I saw a girl with short dark blue hair and pale lavender eyes. Her eyes looked pretty. Can you tell me where the bakery is? It's called Hanapan. In other words, she was lost. Although she knew the way back home, she wouldn't dare wander around. She was timid by nature, and bumping into a lot of strangers was a bit too much for her at the moment. She'd rather go to the bakery she frequented and walk home from there. Who would have known she'd meet an acquaintance from before? Seeing her embarrassed appearance, my chest felt a little lighter and my mind scrambled for a reply. Hello. I said, giving out my best toothy grin to outdo the boy beside me. When the girl saw his smile, her face flushed and she looked down. I guess he doesn't remember me, she thought, and a smile formed on her face before she looked back up and greeted the red-haired and golden-haired boys. Seeing her relaxed smile, a faint memory flashed at the back of my mind, but I can't recall a clear picture. She looks familiar. Suddenly, the events of last winter came into his mind. Oh right, she's the girl that I saved. I definitely saved her from bullies, definitely. So, what do you guys do? A sunny-haired boy asked with his eyes looking up and counting the clouds. Next to him, a red-haired boy and a dark blue-haired girl tilted their heads. The blonde boy would often speak and break the mind-numbing silence in the group, and as a result, both of his companions kept a slight distance from him, afraid of being called out. The girl was introverted, while the red-haired boy wasn't used to being talked to ever since a few weeks ago. After being ignored for so long, he developed bad expectations from others. He expected them to ignore him no matter what he does. Sometimes, he would wonder what will happen if he painted the village in vibrant colors. Will the black and white cave he lives in turn into a rainbow castle? When the blonde heard no response, he turned and looked at the two, raising his eyebrow. So, what do you mean? The red-haired boy asked, making the blonde smile. What do you guys do when you're bored? Oh, the red-haired boy nodded his head in enlightenment. I like to read books, he said, and the blonde boy looked at him with doubt. Really? Who likes to read books? When he asked a question, the red-haired boy looked at him as if he was dumb. Me. I like to read. Me too, the only girl in the group chimed in. Seeing that he was outnumbered, the blonde boy grumbled in defeat. Well, you guys like to read all right. I like to run around when I'm bored. What's so fun about running? The red-haired boy asked, and the blonde boy looked at him before dully asking, what's so fun about reading? Feeling challenged, the red-haired boy crossed his arms. When you read, you get more knowledge and you become relaxed. What about running? What's so fun about running? The other boy shrugged. It's fun just because. Then, the group went silent. From time to time, Benjiro would whistle a tune, making the other two kids flinch. Inside his head, Naruto sighed. Why am I so nervous? I'm not usually like this. When he let out a sigh, the blonde boy looked at him and said, you sigh like an old man. When you grow older, your face will be all wrinkly like. Naruto's brows twitched. And this guy is so blunt, too blunt. We're here. When the girl spoke, we both turned to look in front of us, and as the girl said, they'd arrived at a bakery named Hanapan. After bidding goodbye to the girl, the blonde also said his goodbye. Watching the two kids blend into the crowd, I felt an ache in my chest. A bit of time later, I turned to walk toward my apartment, but my feet were clinging to the ground like an unwilling puppy. In the end, I chose to roam the village for a bit and kill some time. Oh right, I was supposed to buy some first aid kit. Remembering why I came out in the first place, I let out a sheepish chuckle and looked at my bandaged hand. Earlier when the girl and that boy saw my bandaged hand, they asked about what happened. I told them that I accidentally cut myself, and they took the bait, hook, line, and sinker. Well, I suppose I didn't lie. As I walk in the streets, the crowd opened a path for the pariah while muttering behind his back. Why? Why do you do this? I can hear you, you know I can. The villagers didn't say anything hateful. They'd only whisper, look, it's him, he's here, it's that kid, or something similar, and then stare at me with those eyes. It was like they were looking at a dirty rat or a feral dog rather than a person. Is it because of my hair and whiskers? When the thought dawned on me, I ran to the nearest alleyway. Dear. Then, I took out the shirt underneath my light brown jumpsuit and tore it apart, wrapping it around my face and head to act as a mask and hood. I was shaking and fidgeting when I left the dark alley, but when I saw that they didn't look at me with those eyes anymore, I realized that my guess was correct. They shunned me because of my hair and whiskers. I need to buy a mask. I went to the nearest shop that sold masks, but when I saw their exorbitant price tags, I nearly threw them to the ground. Luckily, my hands were still trembling from nervousness and didn't break them, lest I had to pay and get nothing in return. Yes, I can buy them if I use up all my money, but what about my food? I'd rather buy a fishing rod instead. Walking away in disappointment, I looked around and saw a shop that sold first aid kits, bandages, and other medical supplies. "Hey, mister," I shouted, attracting the attention of the shop owner. He looked around before looking down, surprised that it was me who called. "What can I do for you?" the man asked with a skeptical tone. He wasn't that old, maybe just a teenager judging from his voice and his youthful face. He would have started chirping about his products by now if he was experienced, but it seems my expertise is a bit higher than this greenhorn. I had to haggle for hours just to buy a couple of meat and vegetables. "It'll take you a while before you surpass me. How much is this first aid kit?" I pointed at a set of medical supplies with a label bundle discount, basic first aid. "Oh? It costs 500 ryo, but for you, I'll sell it for 450, the man said. He dropped the price by a bit when I showed him my puppy eyes, but I knew I can make him sell it for lower. Just look at those hesitating eyes, so indecisive and pitiful. Don't blame me, blame those cunning merchants who taught me a rough real-life lesson." After saying my apologies inside my head, I sighed sadly and lowered my head, taking out my purse and counting around 300 ryo out loud. Then, I mutter under my breath, "Oh, I'm a little short, but I really need that." Sure enough, the man hesitated for a while before saying, "If you're short of money, you can come back later and give me the rest." Naturally, I ignore him. "Hey, mister," I said in a sweet tone and looked up with my eyes watering and glossy, "won't you sell it to me for 400? "Sorry kid, I can't sell it for lower than 450, my dad will punish me, so he says," but his brows were furrowing a little, and his lips were twitching. "Ah, this won't work," I thought as a teardrop fell from my eyes, and I secretly glanced at another merchant who was watching. The latter noticed my gaze and chuckled. "If my own power is not enough, then I'll ask for help. Behold, the power of bullying cough. I mean, the power of friendship." "How stingy," the merchant muttered under his breath. I and the teenager could barely hear him, but that made the effect better. The teenager's ears twitched and he glanced behind him only to see the merchant turn to look away. When he looked back at me, the merchant mumbled something again, but this time, we couldn't interpret what he was saying. But it didn't matter because the teenager was starting to fidget and become anxious, judging by his action of rubbing his fingers. "You really don't have money?" the teenager said while thinking, "I'll just explain it to my father. What if I damage the shop's image if I don't sell it?" He could still hear the neighboring merchant muttering under his breath, and even though he couldn't understand him, his mind was forming gloomy sentences such as "what a heartless guy, no one would buy from that shop anymore, and how cruel." If Naruto were to hear his thoughts, he would think that the teenager was a thin-faced person. The truth was the merchant was just mumbling incoherent words, but his tone was purposefully manipulated to seem mocking and degrading, making the teenager form such baseless thoughts. "No. I only have 350 ryo with me," I say, but when I saw his face turn ugly, I realized that I asked for too much. "Ah, look, I have another." Before I could even finish, he started putting the first aid kit in a paper bag. "You only have 350. Don't worry. Since I just opened, I'll give you a 150 ryo discount. Here you go." The teenager handed me the paper bag. When I accepted it, I didn't forget to look at him with glee and appreciation. "Thank you very much, mister," I said before running away, but not before winking at the merchant who helped me. The merchant chuckled and waved his hand before burying his head into an orange book. To think of it, the kind librarian from before was also reading that orange book. I wonder what it's about. I was lost in thought when I saw something in the corner of my eye. It was bottles of ink and stacks of paper. "Hello, please give me 1 bottle of ink and a stack of paper." The man behind the stall wrapped the paper and ink in a paper bag. 200 ryo, he said, and after I gave him the money, he handed me the paper bag. Although I would haggle for a first aid kit and other things, when it comes to things related to Fuinjutsu and training, I won't be stingy. Satisfied with the outing, I headed toward a familiar alleyway that led straight to my apartment. Whoosh. Suddenly, a man wearing a blank white mask appeared behind me. After firming my resolve to join the Root Anbu division, I was left both relieved and anxious. "Shina, Yudo, how is your day today?" Every time I open the door to my house, I mutter these words and wait as my wife and child come up to me and hug me, as if we've been apart for a year when really, we've only been apart for a day. I worked as a chunin guard, guarding the village walls in the evening and only returning from work in the morning. That was before and now. Priok. As I open the door, I utter the words I'd been repeating for years. "Shina, Yudo, I'm home. How are the two of you?" Did you eat last night? Yes, yes, I ate the food you cooked for me, Shina. Hold on, let me take a bath first, and let's talk over lunch. Ah, Yudo. Don't run around too much. This little boy, what if you trip? After walking into the bathroom and taking a bath, I changed into my civilian clothes and went to the dining room. It was empty. Shina. What happened? Are you feeling sick? Don't worry, I'll cook lunch today, you don't have to overwork yourself. Yes, yes, don't worry, mommy is fine, Yudo, smiling at my son below me, I walked to the refrigerator and took out some chicken and some vegetables. Tac 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 tac. As the sounds of cutting echoed out in the kitchen, I hummed while listening to Shina and Yudo's voices. Yudo, what about your school? When I asked that question, everything went silent. Sizzle. After sauteing the garlic and onions, I looked back to the living room. Did something happen at school today, Yudo? Why are you suddenly quiet? Don't tell me. My tone turned cooler as I waited for Yudo's answer. As expected, scaring him works all the time. I see, so you were scolded at school today for not paying attention to class. Well, what should you do next time? Yes, yes, you should listen to your teacher more. That's our Yudo, learning from his mistakes. Do you want something for lunch? I'll cook it for you if it's not too hard to prepare. To be honest, my cooking skills were only average, and my wife's cooking is like heaven compared to mine, but the taste of home made it special. You want some fried rice? Okay, that's easy. Wait for a moment and lunch will be ready. Clink clank clang. As the sounds of plates hitting the table rang out, I called Yudo to help me prepare the table. When everything was placed on the table, I went to the couch and helped Shina walk to the dining room. With one hand holding her waist and the other holding her hand, I gently guided her to the dining room. Don't worry, I'll call for a medical ninja after lunch. Just stay at home and rest, I whispered to Shina, although I have a guess as to what might have happened. It wasn't bad, but rather it was a joyous event, so I'll have to ask for a 9-month leave from ninja work. I already saved up enough money just for this day, so there was no need to worry about financial problems. Even if we spent extravagantly for 2 years, we'd still have enough money to live for another year if we stayed frugal, much less now that I'm only leaving work for 9 months. Suddenly, I heard Yudo ask why I was smiling so much. I turned to look at the chair in front of my and Shina's chair. Yudo, when you become an older brother, will you protect your baby sibling? I asked and watched as he puffed his chest with a massive grin on his face. Of course, I'm super cool and strong, after all, I mumble at the same time as he muttered those words, making him look at me with confusion. I laugh and wave him off, silently looking at Shina who is quietly eating with a flushed face after realizing the hidden comment behind my question. Shina, I whisper, have you thought of names yet? Shina chuckled and told me to be patient, and I faithfully do so. Suddenly, I remembered something. The fourth was a little fidgety today when I saw him. Then, I heard him mumble October 10. What do you think will happen tomorrow? Tomorrow is October 10, after all. All of a sudden, the room went silent again. Shina. I looked at Shina, but she didn't look back at me. However, I clearly saw blood dripping from her face. Shina. What happened? Quickly, Yudo, call a medical ninja. No, Yudo, stay here and guard your mom. I'll go call a medical ninja. I was about to leave when I heard no reply. Flustered, I looked at Yudo's seat and saw that just like Shina, he was looking down with blood flowing from his face. Yudo. Damned it, don't worry, I'll quickly call a medical ninja, I promised and dashed out of the door. Bang. When the door to our house slammed open, the villagers on the streets jumped and turned to look at me and the empty house behind me, muttering to each other with pity written on their faces. When I saw those pitying eyes, everything clicked in my mind like a puzzle finally put together after finding the missing piece for too long. I'm again Shina, Yudo, I'm so sorry. While muttering some scattered words, I slowly drifted around the streets. Suddenly, I saw a streak of red hair. Red hair, red hair, red hair. The sentence appeared in my mind. The boy with blood red hair and whiskers is the one housing the nine-tailed. Recalling that sentence, my fingers cooled like an ice block and a blank mask appeared on my face. 9 tails. I growled, looking at the alleyway that the boy entered with infinite malice. Who are you? Seeing the masked man standing motionless in front of me, I trembled non-stop. Usually, I can vaguely feel the emotions of others as if I was experiencing them myself. But today, I found that this ability of mine will not always work, like how it's failing me right now. There's no emotion around this man, he's like a stone statue. If not for the sweat pouring down from the man's chin and his constantly trembling hands, I would have believed that this man was really a statue. Do you know? He mumbled, but his voice was too meek and it failed to reach my ears. Sir? I asked, cautiously glancing at the man's blank mask. I didn't. Do you know how much suffering, how much sorrow do you know? Sir. The hairs on my body stood up as I looked at the masked man. He was clutching his head, screaming and yelling constantly without even forming a single coherent sentence. Step. I take a step back and turn away, prepping my legs to run as fast as possible. Shiver. Suddenly, my whole body trembled and cold sweat started oozing out from my skin. My ability left me alone like a snake leaving its eggs, but now that it started working again, it stabbed me in the back like a viper striking at his prey. Such malice, it feels like I'd suffocate from all the hate. Where do you think you're going? Because of my momentary pause, the man noticed my escape attempt and grabbed my shoulders, locking me in place. Sir, I think you got the wrong person. I didn't do anything bad, I'm innocent. I pleaded and tried to even my voice as much as possible, but the tears welling up in my eyes and the sobs clogging my throat made it hard to do so. Hearing my plea, the man scanned my body and stopped. His entire demeanor calmed down, and his aura mellowed as if the person from before was just an actor I saved. Ha. Of course. Thank you, little boy, it seems that I really did get the wrong person, the man said, and patted my shoulders. It's okay. Suddenly, the man grasped my neck and squeezed it hard. The person I'm looking for is inside of you. How could I be so blind? Limmer. In the corner of my darkening vision, I saw a brilliant light appear on the man's hand. It took me a few moments to realize that it was a knife. A kunai knife. No, don't worry, it'll be quick, the man said and raised his arm, aiming the cold blade at my heart. How heartless a voice echoed in my mind before the world turned darker than night. If only the stars were visible too, I thought when I heard a muffled chuckle as a response. Hello. Hello. Arghh. Argh. Damn it, even my groans will echo. I am surrounded by large metal pipes and old concrete walls, and a thin layer of water carpeted the floor, soaking my feet with water, but not at the same time. I don't know how, but no matter how much I roll around, the water will not make me wet in the slightest. How long has it been? When I opened my eyes around I don't know, an hour ago. 30 minutes ago. 10 minutes ago. I'm not sure. But when I opened my eyes, I found myself trapped in this place. At first, the novelty excited me to no end, but after roaming around the labyrinth that was this solar system for what felt like forever, I realized that I was doomed. It'd be fine if there were fish swimming around to eat, but there aren't even worms. I'm going to starve to death. Splash. When I fell to my knees while holding my head in panic, the water splashed all over me but as expected, I was drier than a desert. Roar. Hiruzen frowned when he saw the mangled corpse of a root ninja. Damn you, Danzo. Making things overly complicated again, he cursed, but his eyes never left the boy with a feral grin. The sealing teams sure are taking their sweet time, Hiruzen chuckled, but his tone was too dark to be jovial. Around him, dozens of Anbu gulped and gave their silent prayers to the root commander. That guy always touched around the Hokage's nerves, was he not afraid of death? Maybe one day, his maid will find his cold body soaked in crimson red while still lying on the bed. Fire style. Firewall. Hiruzen weaved a few hand seals in a flash, and suddenly, an enormous wall of flames surrounded the rampaging boy. He chose fire over water and earth in order to deter the boy from escaping, as doing so will get him burned. Damn it all. Hiruzen cursed as he jumped. Bang. Roar. From where Hiruzen once stood, the boy appeared with flickering flames around his body and a massive crater below him. I can't believe he ran through that. It seems that the boy isn't in control. Maybe the fox is controlling his body, or maybe its chakra is making him act aggressively. Hiruzen made one wild guess after the other, but neither of them was correct. The fox's chakra was merely enhancing Naruto's emotions, but without his mind present, he couldn't think rationally. Because he was nearly killed, Naruto's last emotion before he passed out was fear, and as the QB's chakra enhanced his fear, it made him act offensively against the people who were suddenly surrounding him. Danzo, you better have a good explanation for this, Hiruzen mumbled before putting all his attention on Naruto, throwing other matters into the back of his head. Just as he was about to perform an earth jutsu, Hiruzen sensed a dozen chakra signatures. This chakra, sealing teams, quickly seal away the fox's chakra. Hiruzen ordered without even turning his head to look at the newcomers. Judging from their chakra signature alone, he knew that they were Fuinjutsu experts. Earth style. Binding earth chains. Suddenly, the clothes I was wearing started burning. Strangely enough, I didn't feel any pain, and because I froze in shock after seeing flames cover my entire body, I didn't embarrass myself by screaming. What happened? It happened. TSK, this goddamned echo is driving me nuts. Bound to never speak again, I looked down at my now naked body. Ahaha. My eyes widened in terror, and my body trembled like a lonely leaf facing off a tornado. How could I not? My entire body was burnt in many places, as if I just rolled around a field of flaming hot charcoal, and my skin looked as if someone was trying to it off. How am I alive? Blood was gushing out of my body like a broken faucet, and the clear water on my feet turned crimson red. Suddenly, my eyes caught something unfamiliar. What's this? This. On his abdomen was a spiraling symbol that seemed like a tattoo. The tattoo looked as if it was melting and lightly spinning, though I couldn't tell if that was truly the case or if I was just hallucinating. Just as I was about to shrug it off, my mind suddenly chilled, turning cooler than a cold winter night. Fuinjutsu is used in many various ways. It can be used to defend, attack, hide, and more. But the most common use for Fuinjutsu is the technique of sealing things away into another object or living thing. For example, a ball can be sealed inside a piece of paper. If successful, the ball will be stored in the paper, but the paper itself wouldn't change. A symbol will appear on the paper, signifying that the ball is indeed sealed inside it. Likewise, if something is sealed inside a person's body, a symbol will be etched on that person's skin, organ, or even blood. The symbol will be etched on the skin. I mumbled to myself. My mind was as clear as spring water, and each second passed like an hour. The burns around my body is getting worse, and half of my skin was now peeled off, yet I didn't notice any of it, not even as the water around me had fully turned crimson like roses. Stay away from him, he's dangerous. It's that thing. Why is he still here? Is that him? Damn, chase him away, quick. As all the hushed whispers and murmurs of the villagers echoed in my ears like crickets at night, my mind started processing the hunk of information that was dumped on my head like an oiled machine, forming a conclusion that I never wanted. There had never been a day when I wished that I wasn't quick-witted. There had never been one until now. No way. No way. Splash. Splash. I yelled, my voice trembling as I stepped back and nearly fell to my butt. Impossible. He's dead. That fox is dead. The fourth killed him. I deny it, but every word I uttered just made the fact clearer in my head. There was no doubting it. The reason behind the villagers' sudden turn of coat. Why they excluded him from everything. Why they treated him unfairly. He was wrong. They didn't shun him because of his weird red hair or even the whiskers on his cheek. They shunned him because he was holding something inside of him. All at once, my heart dropped to the ground and my body turned cold, yet my mind was more transparent than a mirror. The nin of the nine-tailed fox is sealed inside of me. Splash. I knelt, my shoulders were slumped downward as my forehead hit the floor, and my hands were tightly clutching my head. Arghhh. Hiruzen stared excitedly as the sealing symbols wrapped themselves around Naruto's body. By now, the boy was motionless. Nice, the fox's chakra is almost. Snap. Suddenly the boy's head turned with a sound like a branch snapping in half just to look at the sky. Hiruzen's eyes widened when he saw a massive amount of red chakra bubbling out of Naruto's abdomen and covering his entire body. Behind him, a tail made out of the fox's chakra sprouted like a forbidden plant. No way how. Hiruzen couldn't believe his eyes, but the continuous howls of the boy made him snap back into reality. Seal the fox's chakra, now. He yelled and weaved hand seals. Summoning jutsu. Monkey King Enma. What a sorrowful cry. Atop the mountain with the faces of the current and previous Hokages etched on its side, a man frowned as he mumbled to himself. He had bandages wrapped around his forehead and right eye, a small X-shaped scar decorated his chin, and his right arm was apparently injured as he wore an arm sling. It seems that my machinations have ended on a perfect note, he muttered and looked at the fire spreading from one building to another in a dense area of the village, the villagers running around like headless chickens, and the Hokage fighting against a young boy barely the age of 4. No, it seems that the results are a little too good. He took one final glance at the chaos and walked away without turning back. With this, the boy should feel what betrayal is like, and his heart will be tainted in pitch-black darkness. As Lord Second Hokage once said, the purest heart gives birth to the darkest darkness, because there is always darkness where there is light, he chuckled to himself. When that time comes, the nine-tailed fox will fall into my hands. But first, I'll have to think of a way to placate an old monkey god who can't even deal with paperwork. For all the knowledge he boasts to have, does he not know to use shadow clones when dealing with such laborious tasks? Then, he remembered the scene he just saw from atop the Hokage mountain. And does he not know that he should first isolate the boy first before dealing with him? The man chuckled as he walked to the nearby forest, and his body was slowly getting covered in darkness. Oh well, all these foolish mistakes will pile up and soon the man's eyes narrowed into a slit. Soon, I'll take that hat that I always deserved. Whoosh. Danzo-sama, in front of the figure that's nearly been swallowed by darkness, a boy with a pale complexion and a smile on his face, knelt in reverence. I suppose that the mission is complete? Danzo asked despite knowing the answer. This boy was his favorite new sprout. After all, he always flawlessly did his mission 100% of the time. The library collapsed from lack of maintenance, and sadly, the boy's smile turned into a sad frown, and even his brows furrowed to show sorrow. The librarian wasn't able to make it out alive. He was the last of his kin. In other words, he didn't have a family to look after him in the afterlife. Good work, Danzo said, and his body disappeared into the shadows of the tall ancient trees. After his master left, the pale boy smiled and took out a small book. It was a sketchbook, and at one point in time, he poured all his emotions into this book. Now, it seems as if he had truly poured all of his emotions into the small, light blue sketchbook. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.